Maimer. That what the previous Rebbe makes a point, that the descent of the Neshama Lamata is similar to the descent of the exile of the Shechina, who Kal Yedei Dugmazu move on, because through this example we'll understand that it's in addition to the fact that it doesn't need Tikkun Mamish, Ela she'eina tzricha Tikkun Klal. He says, one, it doesn't need a tikkun mamish, and then he says even further yet, ein tzricha tikkun klal, doesn't need bechlal the inyan of tikkun. There's the inyan of ein tzricha tikkun klal. So it's interesting. In our it says that although in the Lashon and Tanya already it says already right away in tzricha tikkun klal. So what is the Rebbe Madgish that this is an additional thing? Not, it doesn't need tzricha tikkun mamish. And then it says it doesn't need bechlal tikkun. It doesn't need correction at all. It doesn't need any enhancement.
What is it referring to?
The neshama coming down in this world.
But once it's here, maybe it does get affected.
Yeah, so the Rebbe, right, so I think this is also might be in the words from the Rebbe here. Hari efshel lefarish, that the kavona, that it doesn't need tikkun, means tikkun that the nevroyim need. That you don't need any tikkun, that means tikkun that the Nevrayim need. Doesn't need any tikkun that the creations need. In other words, she does need, not as much as the creations. So what's the comparison to the Shechina? In the same way that the Shechina itself. It's not appropriate to say that it needs a correction, because whatever correction it should be, it comes for a certain purpose. It doesn't need any correction. And the reason that it comes in Golos, or the reason that it comes in Golos is only to be mevarer, to refine in Yonim of Nitzutzim, to refine Nitzutzik Dusha, but not for her own purpose. Only for, as the Rebbe stresses, to refine the sparks of Kedusha. The same thing is also the descent of the Neshama Lamata, Shu Dugma Seid Golos Hashchina, which is the Dugma of Seid Golos Hashchina, is also Sheina Tzricha Tikkun Klal, also does not need a tikkun at all. Now the Rebbe is going to explain what's happening in this Perek. Why is he discussing what he's discussing in this Perek? Because this Perek is a summation of the whole Maimah, the whole Hemshech. So the Rebbe continues, that after he explains in the Maimah Gedel Mailas HaNeshama the quality of the Neshama, that when he speaks about the level of the Neshama as it was before it descended, as he mentions in chapter 8, and here we're up to chapter 20. No, I'm sorry, but the Rebbe says what he's quoting in the chapter 8 later in the Maimah. So then the previous Rebbe adds, that what is the purpose of the neshama? To refine the body of nafshi ativus, and to illuminate his share in the world. In other words, first he says it doesn't need tikkun. Then it says, what did it come down for? For other reasons, to refine the environment. In the beginning he says that the purpose of the descent was for the sake of refining the body and his natural soul. Achar is a tikkun for nafshi ativis, nicht for the neshama allein. Ulachar is a meisev gam chelke ba'elam, and then he also adds his share in the world. Ulahoyer chelke ba'elam, to also accomplish his share in the world. Also, first he says l'saken u'lezachach levarer, and then he says levarer u'lezachach. He says first he says to correct, refine, polish and refine, and then it says to fine and polish in a different sequence. The Rebbe says that we can say the explanation for that is that in this chapter, which is the last chapter, which is the end and the final seal of the whole hemshech of the sequence of 20 chapters, he sums up everything that took place till now, the pnimius and the innermost intention. V'hatichein is the kol hemshech. What is the aim and the goal of the whole hemshech? So the Rebbe says the first thing is what? Let's take in consideration, it's chapter 20. It's 20. Esrim b'gematria keser. Esrim adds the numerical value of Esrim is keser. Is the numerical value of the word keser, crown. 20 and crown goes together. The keser hu ratzon. Keser is the union of will, because will is something that's higher than the intellect, the same way like a crown is over the head. The nekuda and the sachakol, the summation of everything is the ashlama of the ratzon, because the ratzon, the will, is something that completes all the attributes in their utmost. Because the root of all the attributes is in keser, and that is the union of the will. The same thing in character traits, that there's taka, emotions, and there's intellect, but the roots are higher. The Rebbe says, that this is could also explain why in the beginning of the sequence of these Maimorim, this discourse, it's interesting, the Rebbe says, you look at the beginning of the Hemshech, he speaks about the purpose of the creation of world. Then comes by the end, he's starting to speak on a personal level, the descent of the Neshama in a guf. The creation of a person. The whole creation was for the purpose of the person. Atem kruyim adam. The gamma kavona, even the kavonash, the intention and the goal, in the creation of the world, that Eibishter had a desire to make a dwelling place in this world, who b'shvil Yisrael, is for the purpose of the Jewish nation. So therefore, everything is already now focusing on the person, on Yidden. On the other hand, in the beginning of the Maimer, speaking about the world, the creation of the world. So the Rebbe says, "V'lachein beperek esrim shebei mevur hapnimiya anekud pnimis tikol inyanim shebeperakim akedmim." Since in the 20th perek, he explains the intention and the whole contents of all the inyanim in the earlier chapters. Medaber binyan hakavana de briyas adam. So therefore, now what does he choose to speak about? The final touch. The final touch is the person. He is the innermost intention of the whole creation. So therefore, in chapter 20, where he sums up the whole hemshech, the whole sequence of Maimorim, discourses, he starts speaking about who is the final touch. The final line is that it's the Jewish nation, the Yisrael. So the Rebbe says, Al Pizeh, we can explain that this is also the reason why in the beginning he says that the kavanah is to refine the guf and nefesh habamis. He doesn't mention his share in the world. He doesn't mention the inyan of his share in the world. What is the reason for that? To stress that the main part here is not the world. The focus here is the person himself. But the question is, he says earlier, Adam el Elyon, and also Mitzad Ma'ila of the Aveda of Yidden. I'll call upon him that this is Pasha, the final touch of the whole Maimer. It says, where does it end up? It ends up that the whole Aveda is the Aveda of a Yid, who is the one that enhances the whole elevation, the whole Hishtalshalas.
How is Keter the same as Malchut in this sense? Or because it's both kingdom, it's both Ratzon.
But they're different. They're two extremes. Just one comes directly from the other, but there are two different extremes of the chain of creation.
No, they're both kingdom.
Right. Keser Yu Malchus. I mean, that's what we say in Pasach Eliyahu. But it's a different function.
A higher level.
Yeah. Keser is removed even from Atzilus, and Malchus descends into Biyah, into the world's Bria Yitzir Asiyah.
Thank you.